The desert sun hung low over the cracked asphalt of Route 17, casting long shadows that stretched like fingers across the empty highway. Dust devils swirled in the distance, kicking up grit that stung the eyes and filled the air with the faint, acrid scent of parched earth. In the middle of this forsaken stretch, a small figure huddled by the roadside, a boy no older than 12, his backpack slung over one shoulder, thumb out in a desperate hitchhiker's pose. His name was Lucas, though no one passing by would know that yet. He'd been walking for hours since his family's old pickup broke down miles back, the engine coughing its last breath into silence. Fear etched lines on his young face, deepened by the rumors he'd heard in town. Stories of drifters and worse who prowled these roads after dark. Tears streaked the dirt on Lucas's cheeks as the rumble of engines shattered the quiet. It started as a low growl, building into a thunderous roar that vibrated through the ground. Headlights pierced the haze like accusatory eyes, and then they appeared, a convoy of motorcycles slicing through the twilight, their chrome gleaming under the fading light. There were about a dozen riders, leather-clad figures leaning into the wind, bandanas whipping behind them. At the lead was Ethan, a man in his late 40s, whose weathered face bore the scars of too many battles, both on the road and off. His greying beard framed a jaw set like iron, and his eyes, hidden behind aviator shades, missed nothing. Ethan rode a vintage Harley, its black paint chipped from years of loyal service, but something was off today. The tires, thick, rugged beasts meant to conquer any terrain, looked wrong. Lucas noticed it first, his sharp young eyes catching the unnatural sheen on the rubber as the bike slowed to a crawl near him. The boy froze, heart pounding. Those tires weren't right. They glistened with an oily residue, slick and unnatural, like they'd been tampered with. He'd seen his uncle work on cars back home, heard stories of sabotage on the ranch roads, tires slashed or worse, greased to fail at high speeds. A chill ran down his spine despite the heat. These weren't just riders, they were a pack, brothers bound by ink and oaths. The Iron Vipers Motorcycle Club. Ethan had founded it decades ago, after the war that stole his youth and left him with ghosts that whispered in the night, a promise made in a foxhole to a fallen comrade. "Watch out for the lost ones, brother. Keep the road safe for those who can't," had pulled him from the bottle and into this life of rumbling justice. But today, as they geared up for a routine patrol near the border, danger lurked in the shadows of their own machines. Ethan killed his engine first, the silence sudden and heavy. The other bikes followed suit, a chorus of mechanical sighs. He swung a leg over the saddle, boots crunching on gravel as he approached the boy. Lucas backed up a step, clutching his backpack like a shield, but Ethan's presence was steady, not menacing. Up close, the biker smelled of leather and motor oil, a comforting tang amid the fear. "You lost, kid." Ethan's voice was gravelly, softened by concern. The boy swallowed hard, eyes darting to the tires again. The convoy had stopped to check a blown-out semi up ahead, but Lucas's gaze locked on the lead bike's front wheel. The tread was compromised, a thin film of sabotage gleaming wetly in the dying light. My family's truck died," Lucas stammered, voice cracking. "But your bikes, those tires, they're wrong. Someone messed with them. I saw it when you slowed down. That shine. It's not right. It'll blow out on the turns, I swear." The words tumbled out, fueled by instinct, and the stories his uncle told. The other riders exchanged glances, murmuring among themselves. Big Mike, Ethan's second-in-command, a burly veteran with tattoos snaking up his arms, dismounted and knelt by his own bike. His fingers came away slick from the rubber. "Son of a," he muttered, the curse dying as realization hit. Sabotage. In Viper territory, that meant rivals or worse, corruption from the local sheriff's office, whispers of a payoff to run them off the road. Ethan's hand rested lightly on Lucas's shoulder, a gesture that bridged worlds in an instant. The boy's warning hung in the air like a lifeline, pulling the biker back from the edge of a tragedy that could have claimed them all on the treacherous canyons ahead. In that moment, Ethan saw his own lost youth in the boy's eyes, the innocence scarred by abandonment, the family fractured by secrets. "You just saved our hides, son," Ethan said, his voice low and earnest. "What's your name?" Lucas met his gaze, the fear ebbing. "Lucas. And you're not going to leave me here, right?" The question carried the weight of a plea, unspoken promises flickering between them. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in blood-red hues, the Vipers circled their bikes under the glow of flashlights. Tools clattered, tires were inspected and replaced from the saddlebags, spares carried for just such betrayals. Ethan watched Lucas, the boy's small frame silhouetted against the emerging stars, and felt the old vow stir. This wasn't coincidence. It was a call. The road had a way of binding the broken, forging families from strangers. "Ride with us to the next town," Ethan offered, nodding to an empty sidecar on a spare bike. "We'll get you to your folks. And Lucas, you got a viper's eye. Stick close. We've got your back now." The convoy reformed under the moon's pale watch, engines purring back to life with renewed caution. Lucas climbed into the sidecar, the leather seat cool against his skin, the vibration humming through his bones like a heartbeat. As they accelerated into the night, the wind whipping past, Ethan glanced over. The boy's warning had averted disaster, but it unearthed deeper shadows. Who had tampered with their rides? The sheriff's grudge from a bust last year, or something tied to the missing shipments plaguing the border? Ethan's mind raced, the promise from his war days echoing louder. Protect the lost. Honor the bond. Miles blurred into the darkness, the scent of sagebrush mingling with exhaust. Lucas's eyes widened at the freedom of it, the roar drowning his worries. For the first time that day he felt seen. Not just a kid adrift, but part of something unbreakable. Ethan gripped the handlebars tighter, the scars on his knuckles whitening. This boy had reignited a fire he'd thought dimmed, a reminder that loyalty wasn't forged in war, but in the quiet acts that saved lives. The road ahead twisted like fate itself, promising trials that would test them all. But in the rear view, the desert faded, and with it, the isolation. They were riding toward redemption, one turn at a time. The neon lights of Eldridge flickered into view, a dusty outpost clinging to the highway's edge. Gas pumps glowed under buzzing fluorescence, and a diner sign promised hot coffee and answers. Ethan signaled the pull-off, the convoy easing into the lot like a steel serpent coiling to strike. Inside, over steaming mugs, stories would unfold. Lucas's fractured home, the Viper's hidden war against the corrupt. But for now, the boy's keen sight had woven their paths together, a thread of honor in a world frayed by deceit. As the door chimed open, Ethan clapped Lucas on the back. "You did good, kid, real good." The night deepened, but the bond had just begun to burn bright. The diner's fluorescent hum cut through the night like a hesitant beacon, casting stark shadows on the checkered linoleum floor. Ethan pushed open the glass door, the bell jingling sharply above as Lucas trailed behind him, eyes wide at the sudden warmth enveloping them. The air inside was thick with the aroma of sizzling bacon and fresh brewed coffee, a stark contrast to the chill of the desert wind that nipped at their heels. A handful of late-night patrons hunched over plates, truckers nursing hangovers, a lone waitress wiping counters with mechanical precision. The Vipers filed in after, their boots thudding softly, leather creaking as they claimed a corner booth that could barely contain their bulk. Big Mike slid in last, his massive frame squeezing against the vinyl seats, while the others, Jacob, a wiry mechanic with grease-stained fingers, and Sarah, the club's only female rider, her ponytail tied back under a bandana, scanned the room with practiced vigilance. Ethan guided Lucas to the booth, the boy's small hand still gripping the edge of his jacket like an anchor. "Sit," Ethan murmured, his voice a low rumble that carried the weight of unspoken gratitude. The waitress, a woman named Grace with laugh lines etched deep around her eyes, approached with menus and a pot of coffee. She'd seen the Vipers before, knew their reputation as guardians of the forgotten stretches of road, but tonight her gaze lingered on the kid, sensing the fragility in his posture. "What'll it be, folks?" she asked, pouring without waiting for an answer. Steam rose in lazy curls, mingling with the faint scent of rain threatening on the horizon. Lucas stared at the menu, the laminated pages sticky under his fingers, but his mind raced back to the highway. The tires, that oily gleam he'd spotted, had it all been a trick of the light? No, his uncle's lessons echoed clear. Sabotage was a silent killer on these roads, meant to send riders careening into canyons or worse. He glanced at Ethan, who was watching him with those piercing eyes, shades now tucked into his vest pocket. "You said I saved you," Lucas whispered, voice barely above the sizzle from the grill. "But why would someone do that? Mess with your bikes like that?" Ethan leaned back, the booth creaking under his shift, and took a slow sip of coffee. The bitterness grounded him, pulling memories from the depths. It had started years ago, back when the Iron Vipers were just a ragtag group of veterans piecing together a code from the ruins of war. Ethan had lost his brother-in-arms in a dusty ambush overseas, the man's last words a ragged promise. "Keep the innocent safe, Ethan. Don't let the shadows win." That vow had birthed the club, a family forged in chrome and loyalty, patrolling the borders against smugglers and the corrupt hands that enabled them. But lately, the shadows had crept closer. Whispers in border towns spoke of a sheriff's deputy, a man named Harlan, who'd turned a blind eye to illicit shipments for a cut of the profits. The Vipers had crossed him once, busting a ring that left his pockets lighter and his grudge festering. "Enemies on the road," Ethan replied finally, his tone measured, like measuring gunpowder. "We've stepped on toes, folks who profit from the chaos out here. That shine on the tires, it's a warning shot. Someone wanted us off the path before we hit the canyons." He paused, studying Lucas's face, the boy's freckles standing out under the harsh lights. There was a resilience there, buried under the fear, reminding Ethan of his own boyhood, orphaned young and raised by the streets until the military gave him structure. "But you saw it first. Sharp eyes like that, they don't come cheap." Across the table, Sarah chimed in, her voice soft but edged with steel. She joined the Vipers after losing her husband to a factory collapse, the company's negligence buried under payoffs, much like the corruption they fought now. "Kids got instincts," she said, sliding a plate of pancakes toward Lucas. "Eat up. You'll need your strength if you're sticking with us." The boy poked at the food, steam rising like ghosts, but his appetite stirred at the kindness. For the first time since the truck sputtered to a halt, he felt the knot in his chest loosen. Big Mike grunted, wiping his mouth with a napkin. "Harlan's crew, no doubt. They've been tailing our patrols, leaving signs. Last week, Jacob's garage got hit. Tools missing, locks jimmied. Thought it was kids, but now..." He trailed off, exchanging a look with Ethan. The sabotage wasn't random. It tied into the larger rot. Missing families along the border, whispers of forced labor in hidden camps, all shielded by badges gone bad. The Vipers had vowed to uncover it, honoring their code, but tonight's close call sharpened the stakes. Lucas's warning had bought them time, but it also painted a target on the boy. If Harlan's men knew a witness had spotted the tampering. Outside, rain began to patter against the windows, blurring the neon glow into watery halos. Ethan pushed his empty mug aside, the clink echoing his resolve. "Tell us about you, Lucas. Truck trouble. Where's your family headed?" The boy hesitated, fork midway to his mouth. The words came haltingly, laced with the ache of secrets too heavy for 12 years. His mom had packed them up after his dad vanished months ago. Debts, arguments, a note left on the kitchen table saying he'd fix things. They'd been fleeing to Aunt Rachel's in the city, but the engine's betrayal stranded them. Dad. He promised he'd come back, Lucas said, eyes dropping to his plate. But the roads out here, they swallow people. Like those stories. Folks disappearing. No trace. Ethan's jaw tightened, the parallel hitting like a punch. His own ghosts, the comrade's grave unmarked, the promise that drove him, mirrored the boy's loss. Promises like that don't die easy, he said, voice steady. We find the lost ones. That's our road. The Vipers nodded, a silent pact renewing around the table. Sarah reached over, squeezing Lucas's hand. You're not alone now. Kid, we've got spares for more than tires. As the rain intensified, drumming a relentless rhythm on the roof, a shadow passed the window, a pickup idling across the street, headlights cutting through the downpour. Jacob tensed, hand drifting to his belt. Company, he muttered. Ethan rose slowly, signaling calm, but his eyes locked on the vehicle. Harlan's mark? Or just a weary traveller? The air thickened with unspoken tension, the diner's warmth suddenly fragile. Lucas looked up, the fear returning, but Ethan's hand on his shoulder grounded him. Stay close, the biker whispered. We've ridden through worse storms. The doorbell jingled again as a figure stepped in, water dripping from a raincoat, face obscured by the hood. Conversations hushed. The Viper's unity a coiled spring. Whatever came next, answers, confrontation, or deeper entanglement, the boy's warning had ignited a chain, binding their fates in the storm's embrace. Outside, thunder rolled like distant engines, promising the road's unyielding call. The figure in the raincoat shook off the downpour like a dog emerging from a river, water pooling at his boots on the diner's threshold. The hood fell back, revealing a face etched with the wear of too many border nights. Nathan, a wiry informant who'd traded secrets with the Vipers before, his eyes darting like a cornered fox. He wasn't one of Harlan's. The club knew that much from the faint scar above his lip, a memento from a raid gone south 2 years back. Ethan relaxed his stance fractionally, but the tension in the booth lingered, coiling tighter as Nathan's gaze swept the room and locked on them. Storm's a bastard tonight, Nathan said, voice low and raspy, sliding onto a stool at the counter without invitation. Grace poured him coffee unasked, her movements efficient, knowing the drill. The Vipers watched, silent sentinels. A steam curled from his mug like exhaled secrets. Lucas shrank deeper into the booth, the pancakes forgotten, his small frame pressed against Sarah's side. She draped an arm around him casually, a shield of leather and resolve, her fingers tapping a subtle rhythm on the table, code for steady. Ethan nodded once, the universal signal to speak. Nathan leaned in, voice dropping to a murmur that cut through the rain's patter. Heard your engines rumbled past the checkpoint earlier. Thought you'd be halfway to the canyons by now. His eyes flicked to Lucas, curiosity sharpening. Who's the kid? Looks like he saw a ghost. More like he spotted one before it struck, Big Mike rumbled, his massive arms crossed like barricades. The sabotage hung unspoken between them, a thread pulling at the club's frayed edges. Ethan slid a menu Nathan's way, masking the exchange. Tires greased like a bad joke. Kid here caught it. Saved us a spill into oblivion. Nathan's laugh was bitter, devoid of humor. He stirred his coffee with a spoon that clinked like rattling chains. Harlan's handiwork, no doubt. He's ramping up. Got wind you're sniffing too close to his shipments. Those are missing families, not ghosts, Ethan. Camps, hidden in the washes, forcing labor for the cartels he palms off to. Your patrols are cramping his style. The words landed heavy, stirring the air with the scent of revelation and rot. Outside, lightning cracked, illuminating the pickup across the street, empty now. but its presence a lingering threat. Rain sluicing down its windshield like tears. Lucas's breath hitched, the pieces clicking in his young mind. His dad's disappearance, the vague talk of debts, the sudden flight, echoed Nathan's tale. "Camps?" he whispered, voice trembling but insistent. "Like people taken? My dad. He left a note, said he'd fix things. But what if—" The sentence trailed into the diner's hum, vulnerability cracking his resolve. Sarah squeezed his shoulder, her touch warm against the chill seeping from the storm. She'd lost her own anchors once, promises shattered by negligence. Now she saw the boy as a mirror to her scars, a chance to mend what the world broke. Ethan's eyes darkened, the war's shadows resurfacing in the fluorescent glare. That foxhole promise to safeguard the vulnerable, to honor the fallen, had carried him through deserts bloodier than this one. But Harlan's corruption twisted it, turning badges into nooses. "We've tangled with him before," Ethan said, voice steady as engine idle. "Busted his side deal last spring, cost him a promotion, maybe more. But this, tampering with our rides, it's personal, escalating." Jacob leaned forward, his mechanic's hands fidgeting with a sugar packet, twisting it like a wire. "My shop's already hit, thought it was vandals, but now they're testing us. If we ride blind into the canyons tomorrow, we're done." The booth felt smaller, the vinyl seats creaking under shifting weights, the air thick with the aroma of cooling coffee and unspoken oaths. Nathan nodded, pulling a crumpled map from his coat, faded lines marking washes and forgotten trails. "I've got eyes inside. One camp's active, 10 miles east of the ridge. Guards rotate at dawn. But Harlan's deputy rides shotgun, knows your routes." The rain hammered harder, a relentless drumbeat sinking with the pulse in Ethan's temples. He studied the map, fingers tracing invisible paths. The paper crinkling softly. Loyalty bound the Vipers, not blood but choice, forged in nights like this, when the road demanded more than miles. Lucas watched, absorbing it all, the fear in his eyes hardening into something fiercer. "You gonna stop them?" he asked, voice small but piercing. "The ones taking people, like my dad, maybe?" Ethan met the boy's gaze, the diner's lights reflecting in his eyes like distant stars. "We don't leave our own behind. That's the promise." The words carried the weight of decades, a vow etched deeper than ink on skin. Sarah smiled faintly, pride flickering. "Kid's got heart. Reminds me why we ride." Nathan pocketed the map, sliding off the stool. "Dawn patrols your window, but watch the turns. Harlan's boys might have eyes on this pit stop." He tossed a few bills for the coffee, the coins clinking like warnings, and vanished into the storm. The doorbell's jingle swallowed by thunder. The pickup across the street revved to life, tail lights blurring red through the rain as it pulled away, leaving only ripples in the puddles. Grace cleared plates with quiet efficiency, her presence a steady anchor. "You all need rooms. Storm's not letting up." Ethan shook his head, signaling the end of the lull. The Vipers rose as one, a unit moving with purpose, leather whispering against fabric. Lucas stood last, backpack reclaimed, but now it felt lighter, buoyed by the invisible thread tying him to these strangers turned kin. Outside, the wind howled, whipping rain sideways as they mounted up. Engines coughed to life, a symphony of defiance against the night. Ethan helped Lucas into the sidecar, the boy's face pale but set. "Hold on tight," he said, the roar drowning doubt. The convoy peeled out, headlights carving tunnels through the deluge, tires gripping wet asphalt with renewed trust. Behind them, the diner faded into a glowing memory, but ahead, the canyons loomed, twisted veins of earth hiding Harlan's sins. Miles unspooled under the storm's fury, wipers slashing rhythmically, the scent of wet sage invading the sidecar. Lucas gripped the edge, heart racing with the thunder, but for the first time fear mingled with fire. Ethan's profile cut sharp against the flashes, a sentinel reborn. The sabotage had been a spark. Now it ignited a reckoning. Promises old and new intertwined, pulling them toward dawn's edge, where justice waited in the shadows. As the ridge rose on the horizon, a flicker of light, unnatural, man-made, pierced the gloom. A camp or a trap? Big Mike's voice crackled over the comms, urgent. Eyes sharp, brothers. Something's waiting. The engines surged, binding them closer, the road's call unyielding in the rain's embrace. The rain lashed against the convoy like a vengeful spirit, turning the highway into a slick ribbon of black mirror under the sporadic flash of lightning. Ethan's Harley cut through the downpour, its engine a defiant growl that drowned the thunder's rumble. In the sidecar, Lucas huddled low, rain sluicing over the canvas cover, soaking his jacket until it clung like a second skin. The scent of wet leather and ozone filled his nostrils, sharp and invigorating, chasing away the diner's lingering warmth. Ahead, the ridge loomed, a jagged scar against the stormy sky, its silhouette broken by that anomalous flicker of light, pulsing like a heartbeat in the dark. Big Mike's voice crackled again over the comms, tinny and urgent through the static. That glow's no campfire, too steady, could be floodlights on a perimeter fence. The words hung in the air, laced with the weight of what they implied. The Vipers had ridden into ambushes before, but this felt different, calculated, tied to Harlan's web of deceit. Ethan throttled down slightly, the bike's vibration steadying his resolve. His mind replayed Nathan's map, the faded lines etching warnings into his thoughts. 10 miles east of the ridge, a wash hidden from satellite eyes, where whispers said the lost were funneled into shadows. Families like Lucas's, perhaps, swallowed by debts or desperation, emerging as ghosts in labor camps that fueled Harlan's greed. Sarah rode flank on her sleek Indian Scout, her headlights slicing the veil of rain like a blade. She'd patched more than engines in her time with the club, wounds of the soul, too, from nights when the road claimed one of their own. Now, she glanced at Lucas through the storm, her bandana sodden but her eyes fierce. The boy had ignited something in her, a protective fire reminiscent of the sister she'd lost young to the streets. "You holding up, kid?" she called over the wind, her voice cutting through the roar. Lucas nodded, though his teeth chattered, gripping the sidecar's edge until his knuckles ached. The fear was there, raw and electric, but mingled with a spark of purpose. His dad's promise, "I'll fix it, son, for us," echoed in the thunder, urging him forward. If this light led to answers, he'd face it. The convoy crested a low rise, engines purring low to mask their approach, tires humming on the wet gravel shoulder. Jacob, ever the tinkerer, had rigged suppressors for just such stealth runs, muffling the beasts into whispers. They killed lights one by one, navigating by the ridge's faint outline and the comm's glow. The flicker resolved into clarity. Sodium lamps buzzing over chain link topped with razor wire, casting harsh yellow pools on mud-churned ground. Beyond, shadows moved. Figures in ponchos, rifles slung low, patrolling a cluster of prefab sheds that squatted like warts on the earth. The air grew heavier, with the tang of diesel and despair, carried on the wind from the camp's heart. Ethan signaled a halt, the bikes idling to silence in a copse of stunted junipers. Rain dripped from needles, pattering like impatient fingers. He dismounted first, boots sinking into the sodden soil, and helped Lucas out. The boy's legs wobbled, but he stood tall, eyes fixed on the lights. "That's it," Lucas breathed, voice hushed. "The place from the stories, people, taken." Ethan's hand on his shoulder was firm, a tether in the chaos. The biker's own scars itched under his jacket, remnants of shrapnel from that foxhole where promises were born in blood. "We scout first," he murmured. "No charging in blind. Harlan's men are inside. We get proof, then we call it in clean." Big Mike crouched beside them, his bulk a reassuring shadow, rain beading on his shaved head. 2 guards at the gate, more circling the sheds. Looks like a dozen holding pens, wire cages from the glint. He pulled a monocular from his vest, peering through the downpour. The vipers spread out, a silent phalanx. Sarah and Jacob flanking left, covering the wash's edge where runoff carved treacherous gullies. Whispers passed via hand signals. Old military code, etched into muscle memory. Loyalty wasn't shouted here. It was lived in the quiet coordination, the chosen family moving as one organism against the storm. Lucas's heart pounded, a drum in his chest sinking with the rain. He shouldn't be here, a kid amid hardened riders. But the sabotage he'd spotted had bound him to this. Peering through the branches, he caught a glimpse inside the wire, huddled forms in the sheds, faces pale under the lamps, stirring faintly like leaves in wind. One figure, a man with a familiar slump, paused at the fence, scanning the dark. Lucas's breath caught. "Dad." The word escaped as a whisper, hope and horror twisting in his gut. Ethan shot him a look, sharp but understanding, and pulled him back. "Easy. We confirm, then move." But fate twisted sharper. A patrol light swept their way, the beam dancing erratically in the gusts. Jacob hissed over comms. "Incoming, deputy's truck, Harlan's plates." The engine's low growl pierced the night, headlights probing the ridge like accusatory fingers. The vipers melted deeper into cover, but Lucas froze for a split second, the rain masking his gasp. Ethan yanked him down, bodies pressed to the mud, the scent of wet earth and pine overwhelming. The truck idled 50 yards off, a silhouette inside barking orders into a radio. Static crackled faintly. "Vipers sighted near diner. If they're poking, end it." The words hung like smoke, confirming the sabotage's architect. Harlan's corruption ran deep, badges shielding camps that stripped dignity for profit, families fractured like Lucas's own. Ethan's jaw clenched, the old vow surging, protect the lost no matter the cost. As the truck rumbled away, tires churning mud, he rose slowly. "We need evidence, phone pics, cords, enough to bury him." Sarah nodded, slipping a compact camera from her saddlebag. "I'll get close, cover me." She moved like a shadow, rain cloaking her steps, while the others held position. Lucas watched, awe mingling with terror, the bond solidifying. These weren't outlaws, they were redeemers, honoring oaths in a world that forgot them. Minutes stretched eternal, the camp's lights mocking their vigil. Then Sarah's whisper, "Got it. Faces, tags on crates, cartel marks, Harlan's deputy in frame." Relief washed through the group, but it soured quick. A shout from the camp, alarm klaxons wailing, floodlights sweeping wild. "They're on to us," Big Mike growled, engines firing in unison. The convoy erupted from cover, a thunderclap of steel and resolve, roaring toward the highway. Gunfire cracked behind, warning shots or worse, but the vipers were ghosts in the storm, weaving through the gullies. Lucas clung to Ethan, the sidecar jolting over ruts, wind howling victory and peril. The evidence burned in Sarah's pocket, a spark against Harlan's empire. As they hit the open road, the ridge receding in the mirrors, Ethan glanced at Lucas. "You see him? Your dad?" The boy nodded, tears mixing with rain. "Yeah, he's in there." The promise extended now, to free not just the lost, but one boy's hope. Dawn crept grey on the horizon, the storm breaking into fitful light. Justice stirred, ethical fires kindling brighter, but Harlan's reach was long. The road ahead promised confrontation, loyalty's true test. If this tale of quiet courage and unbreakable bonds is stirring something in you, do us a favor. Hit that like button below. It helps spread these stories of redemption to those who need them most. Dawn's first light bled across the horizon like a hesitant wound, painting the storm-scoured highway in muted greys and golds. The convoy thundered onward, Engines cutting through the fading patter of rain, tires gripping the asphalt with a renewed ferocity that echoed the Viper's resolve. Ethan's Harley led the pack, its chrome dulled by water but unbowed. The sidecar where Lucas rode now a cocoon of shared silence, the boy's face, streaked with mud and rain, pressed against the wind, eyes distant as the ridge and the glimpse of his father, faded into memory. The scent of damp sage and cooling exhaust wrapped around them, a gritty perfume of survival, while the horizon promised uneasy reprieve. Big Mike rode close on Ethan's flank, his bulk hunched over the handlebars, comms crackling with updates. Sarah's got the shots clean. Timestamps, faces, the works. That deputy's mug is front and center, barking orders like he owns the night. The words carried over the roar, laced with grim satisfaction. Evidence like this could crack Harlan's facade wide open, expose the camps as the rotten core of his operation. But Ethan knew the border's underbelly too well. Badges like Harlan's didn't fall easy. They clung, corrupt roots digging deeper when threatened. The sabotage on their tires had been a prod. This scout run was a declaration, and retaliation would come swift as a desert wind. They pulled off at a forgotten rest stop, a cluster of weathered picnic tables ringed by chain link and tumbleweeds. The bikes settled into silence, a mechanical sigh as riders dismounted, boots crunching on gravel still slick from the downpour. Sarah handed over the camera first, her fingers steady despite the adrenaline's afterglow. Water dripped from her bandana, tracing paths down her neck, but her eyes burned with the fire of purpose. It's solid, Ethan. Crates stamped with cartel runes. Workers in the background. Signs of strain, no more. Enough to light a fire under the feds if we play it right. She glanced at Lucas, who stood apart, backpack at his feet, staring at the dusty ground as if it held answers. Ethan took the device, thumbing through the images under the weak morning sun. The shots captured the camp's grim poetry, sodium lights casting long shadows over wire enclosures, figures moving with the weight of unseen burdens. One frame froze a man at the fence, tall, shoulders slumped in a way that twisted Lucas's gut. "That's him," the boy had whispered during the escape, voice breaking over the engine's growl. Now, in the light of day, doubt crept in like fog. Was it really his dad, or just a cruel echo of loss? Ethan pocketed the camera, his scarred hand lingering. The foxhole promise pulsed in his veins. Protect the lost, mend the fractures. This boy, adrift and sharp-eyed, had become part of that oath, a living reminder that redemption wasn't solitary. "Circle up," Ethan called, voice low but commanding, drawing the Vipers into a tight huddle. Jacob knelt by his bike, wiping down the frame with a rag, his mechanic's instincts already plotting repairs against the next threat. Big Mike loomed like a sentinel, arms crossed, while Sarah leaned against a table, her presence a quiet anchor. Lucas edged closer, drawn by the gravity of their unity, the air thick with the tang of wet metal and resolve. "Harlan's got the law twisted around his finger," Ethan began, eyes scanning each face. "Those camps aren't just holding folks, they're breaking them. Debts turned to chains, families scattered like dust. The sabotage was his warning. We push now, we risk everything." Jacob looked up, grease smudging his cheek. "My shop's still got eyes on it. Could be more tampering waiting. But if we sit, those people rot. Kid's dad." He trailed off, nodding to Lucas, who met his gaze with a flicker of steel. The boy had changed since the highway, the fear hardening into quiet determination. Stories from his uncle about road justice, about men who kept their word when the world didn't, now felt real, tangible in the Viper's bond. "I saw him," Lucas said, voice steadier than before. "Or someone like him. If it's Dad. He wouldn't want me running. He promised to fix things. Maybe this is how." Sarah's hand found his shoulder again, a touch light as a breeze but firm as oath. She'd ridden with ghosts of her own. her husband's collapse, the negligence buried under lies, and seen how promises could redeem or destroy. It's not just about one man, kid. It's the code. We don't leave anyone to the shadows. Her words wove through the group, stirring the ethical currents that bound them. Confront Harlan head-on meant skirting the law's edge, risking labels of vigilantes in a system rigged against them. But inaction, that betrayed the very honor that pulled Ethan from his war-haunted nights, forging this chosen family from leather and loyalty. Big Mike grunted, breaking the pause. Feds are slow out here. Payoffs reach far. We leaked this to the right journalist, maybe Nathan's contacts, but we need a plan. Ride back to base, gear up for extraction. Dawn's our edge again tomorrow. The idea hung, practical yet perilous. Extracting from the camp meant slipping past guards, facing Harlan's deputy in the flesh. Ethan weighed it, the sun climbing higher, warming the air with the faint scent of blooming creosote. His mind flashed to the war, foxholes where choices saved lives or sealed fates. We ride smart, he decided. Jacob, reinforce the bikes, check every bolt. Sarah, reach out to our eyes in town. Lucas, you stay with me. This fight's yours now, too. The boy nodded, a small smile cracking through the exhaustion. For the first time, the road felt like home, not a devourer of promises. The Vipers mounted up, engines igniting with a chorus of purpose, the rest stopped shrinking in their wake. But as they merged onto the highway, a distant hum grew, tires on pavement closing from behind. Ethan glanced in the mirror, spotting dust plumes rising like harbingers. Harlan's pursuit, or shadows playing tricks in the light? Big Mike's voice cut through. We've got company, 2 trucks, unmarked, picking up speed. Tension coiled anew, the convoy accelerating into the sun's glare. Lucas gripped the sidecar, heart racing with the engines, the evidence a burning talisman against the encroaching threat. Ethan's hand tightened on the throttle, the old vow steeling him. Justice wasn't ablaze. It was this, persistent, moral fire against corruption's chill. The chase unfolded, miles blurring, binding them tighter in the dance of redemption. Whatever lay at the road's bend, they'd face it united, promises unbroken under the vast sky. The sun climbed higher, turning the highway into a shimmering ribbon of heat haze that distorted the world ahead like a fever dream. Ethan's Harley surged forward, the engine's roar, a steady pulse against the rising whine of pursuit from behind. Dust clouds billowed in the mirrors, marking the 2 unmarked trucks closing the gap, hulking shadows with tinted windows and tires kicking up gravel like accusations. The air whipped past, carrying the dry bite of desert baked under relentless light, mingling with the faint metallic tang of adrenaline. Lucas pressed low in the sidecar, his fingers white-knuckled on the leather strap, the vibration rumbling through him like an unspoken vow. The evidence, Sarah's camera tucked safely in Ethan's vest, felt like a fragile heartbeat against his chest, a key to unlocking the camp's horrors and perhaps his father's shadow. Big Mike's voice barked over the comms, sharp amid the wind's howl. They're gaining. Looks like Harlan's off-road beasts. No plates, but that grill's a giveaway. 5 miles back, pushing hard. The Vipers tightened formation, a steel-veined organism weaving through the sparse traffic of early-morning semis. Jacob rode tail, his bike darting like a sparrow, glancing back with eyes narrowed behind his goggles. He'd reinforced the chassis at the rest stop. Bolts torqued against sabotage's ghost, but speed tests loyalty as much as treachery. Sarah flanked left, her Indian scout hugging the shoulder, kicking up sprays of sand that stung like warnings. The chase wasn't random. Harlan's web had sensed their probe, the camp's alarms rippling outward like poisoned veins. Ethan throttled up, the Harley responding with a guttural snarl. Wind tearing at his beard as he scanned for an out. The ridge's foothills rose on the right, a labyrinth of arroyos and scrub that could swallow vehicles whole. "Split the pack," he commanded, voice steady over the static. Mike, Jacob, draw 'em into the wash. Sarah, Lucas, stick with me. We loop to base, drop the evidence. The plan unfolded in fragments, born of roads travelled and battles etched into scar tissue. Ethan's mind raced back to the foxhole, where promises were whispered amid the whine of incoming fire. Safeguard the innocent. Let no shadow claim them unchallenged. Lucas, this boy with eyes like shattered glass, embodied that charge now, his warning on the tires a spark that ignited their path toward Harlan's downfall. The convoy fractured with precision, Big Mike and Jacob peeling right into a narrow cut in the earth, engines echoing off red rock walls as they baited the hounds. Dust exploded behind, the trucks veering after them with aggressive horns blaring like war cries. Ethan and Sarah accelerated, the highway blurring into a streak of faded yellow lines, the sidecar's canvas flapping wildly. Lucas risked a glance back, heart slamming against his ribs. "They're splitting us," he shouted, voice raw over the rush. "What if they catch Mike?" Ethan's profile cut sharp against the glare, jaw set like forged iron. "They won't. Vipers don't break easy. Your sharp eyes bought us this. Now we finish it." Sarah's bike stayed glued to their flank, her ponytail streaming like a banner of defiance. She'd seen pursuits like this before, back when grief fueled her rides, turning loss into a blade against injustice. The camp's images burned in her mind, huddled figures under wire, a man's silhouette at the fence that mirrored Lucas's ache. "Base is 20 miles, she called. "Nathan's got a safe drop, Old Mill off the old trail. We upload there. Send it viral before Harlan spins his lies." Her words carried the weight of their code, justice not through fists alone, but through truth's unyielding light, exposing corruption's underbelly to the world. The landscape shifted, the open highway giving way to a forgotten spur road, pocked with potholes and flanked by towering saguaros, their arms raised like silent witnesses. Ethan downshifted, navigating the ruts with the instinct of a man who'd mapped these veins in his sleep. The sun beat down, baking the air into a shimmering oven, sweat tracing paths under his jacket. Lucas wiped his face, the sting of salt in his eyes no match for the fire building inside. His dad's note, crumpled in his backpack, whispered doubts, but the Viper's unity drowned them. These riders, scarred by their own wars, had chosen him, weaving his story into theirs. Redemption wasn't a solo ride. It was this convoy, promises interlocking like chain links. A sharp crack split the air, tires screeching, then a thud as one truck misjudged the washer's turn, its undercarriage scraping rock in a shower of sparks. Big Mike's update crackled through. "One down, flipped in the gully. Seconds backing off, radioing for backup. We're clear, heading to rendezvous." Relief washed brief, but Ethan knew Harlan's reach extended beyond these dust-choked chases. The sheriff's corruption festered like an open wound, badges shielding camps where debts became shackles, families like Lucas's torn asunder. The sabotage had been a feint, this pursuit, the escalation, but the evidence. That was their counterstrike, a moral thunderbolt against institutional rot. They hit the old trail as the sun peaked, the mill emerging from a thicket of mesquite like a relic from forgotten eras, rusted silos leaning against the sky, windows shattered into jagged teeth, engines cut to whispers, the Vipers reassembling in the shade, leather creaking as they dismounted. Nathan waited inside, his wiry frame silhouetted against a bank of dusty servers humming in the gloom. The air was cool and stale, laced with the musty scent of aged wood and ozone from the machines. "Heard the rumble," he said, taking the camera with quick hands. "Uploading now. Encrypted channels, straight to a Fed contact who owes me. Harlan's deputy, his face'll be on every screen by noon." Lucas stepped forward, the concrete floor cold under his sneakers, eyes searching the shadows. "My dad, was that him in the pictures? The man at the fence?" Nathan paused, thumbing the device, then nodded gravely. "Matches the description from manifests I've seen. Name's Ryan, right? In for debts, cartel muscle strong-arming locals. The boy's knees buckled slightly, but Sarah caught him, her arm a steady pillar. Ryan's promise, to fix things, to return, hung in the balance, a thread the Vipers would pull. Ethan's hand rested on Lucas's back, the gesture bridging generations of guarded hearts. "We go back at dusk," he said, voice low thunder. "Extraction run. No guns, just precision. Free the ones we can. Hold the line till help arrives." The group nodded, a silent covenant renewing in the mill's dim light. Jacob tinkered with a bike chain, the clink rhythmic as a heartbeat, while Big Mike scanned the horizon through binoculars, ever vigilant. Outside, the desert breathed, heat waves dancing over the scrub, but inside, plans solidified. Routes mapped, signals set. Lucas absorbed it, the weight of belonging settling like a well-worn vest. His warning had prevented one tragedy. Now, it fueled a larger redemption, honoring oaths in a cynical world. As the upload chimed complete, a distant siren wailed, Harlan's forces mobilizing, the net tightening. Ethan rose, signaling the ride out. "Time to move, loyalty's our armor." The engines ignited, a chorus of resolve, carrying them back into the sun's embrace. The road twisted ahead, promising confrontation's edge. But the bond held firm, family chosen, promises unbroken, justice's quiet fire burning eternal against the encroaching dark. The sun dipped low on the horizon, bleeding crimson across the desert like spilled ink on parched canvas, as the Iron Viper's convoy ghosted back toward the ridge. Engines hummed low, a restrained growl that blended with the evening's whispering winds, carrying the faint scent of creosote and cooling earth. Ethan's Harley led once more, the sidecar cradling Lucas, whose small frame had grown steadier over the day's trials. The boy's eyes, sharp as the tires he'd saved them from, scanned the shadowed washes ahead, heart pounding with a mix of dread and unyielding hope. The mill's upload had rippled outward, Nathan's contacts stirring unseen currents, but Harlan's empire wouldn't crumble without a final push. Tonight's extraction was the vow's fulfillment. Free the lost, honor the bond, let truth carve justice from corruption's grip. They parked the bikes in a concealed drawer, a mile from the camp, the metal ticking softly as it cooled under the emerging stars. Leather creaked as the Vipers dismounted, faces etched with the quiet intensity of men and women who'd chosen this path over easier roads. Big Mike checked his gear, a compact toolkit for cutting wire, no more, his massive hands steady despite the stakes. Sarah adjusted her bandana, the fabric damp from the day's sweat, her gaze flicking to Lucas with a nod that spoke volumes. "You're one of us now." Jacob lingered by his bike, finalizing suppressors to muffle any breach, the clink of tools, a rhythmic underscore to their planning. Ethan knelt before Lucas, the ground's grit pressing into his knees, and met the boy's eyes. "This is it, son. We slip in, get your dad and the others out. No heroes, just precision. You stay with Sarah. Watch, learn, but don't move unless I say." Lucas swallowed hard, the weight of his father's silhouette from the photos burning in his mind. Ryan's promise to fix their fractured world had led to this hidden hell, debts twisted into chains by Harlan's greed. But the Viper's code, forged in Ethan's war-scarred soul, offered redemption's bridge. "What if they fight?" the boy asked, voice a thread in the twilight hush. Ethan placed a hand on his shoulder, the touch warm and unyielding. "We don't fight shadows with shadows. The evidence is out, feds are en route by dawn. Tonight, we light the way home." The words carried the foxhole's echo, that ragged oath to safeguard innocence amid chaos, now extended to this chosen kin. They moved as one, shadows among shadows, navigating the arroyos under a sliver of moon. The camp's sodium lights buzzed ahead, casting elongated pools that danced with the wind's stir. Razor wire glinted like false teeth, enclosing the prefab sheds where muffled voices hinted at weary lives. Guards patrolled lazily, their ponchos rustling, Unaware of the ripple Nathan's leak had started, sirens distant but closing, Harlan's deputy barking frantic orders over a radio. The Vipers split. Big Mike and Jacob to the rear fence, Sarah and Lucas to a blind spot near the gate. Ethan led the breach, wire cutters snipping silently, the metallic tang sharp in the air. Inside, the camp unfolded in grim detail. Huddled forms in the enclosures, faces gaunt under the lamps, stirring at the faint sounds of liberation. Ethan signaled, and they worked fast. Locks picked, doors eased open, whispers guiding the freed toward the shadows. "This way. Quiet," Sarah murmured to a cluster of women and men, her voice a lifeline in the dark. Lucas crouched nearby, heart racing, scanning the faces until, there, emerging from a far shed, a tall figure with slumped shoulders, rubbing wrists raw from bonds. Ryan. The boy's breath caught, a sob swallowed as he darted forward despite the plan. "Dad!" The words sliced the night, soft but seismic. Ryan's head snapped up, eyes widening in the dim light, recognition dawning like a sunrise. He moved toward Lucas, arms opening, but froze as shouts erupted from the guard's post. "Intruders! Sound it!" Alarms wailed, floodlights sweeping wild, turning the camp into a stark tableau of chaos. The Vipers converged, herding the freed toward the breach. 20 souls, perhaps more, stumbling into the night. Gunfire cracked, warning shots pinging off metal sheds, but Ethan waved them on, his presence a bulwark. "Go! We've got the proof. Hold the line!" Big Mike shouldered a gate shut behind them, his bulk buying precious seconds, while Jacob lobbed a flash diversion. The burst of light and noise scattering the pursuers. Ryan scooped Lucas into a fierce embrace, the boy's tears soaking his father's worn shirt, the scent of sweat and earth grounding them both. "I thought. The note, the debts, they took me for leverage," Ryan rasped, voice thick with regret. "Promised I'd fix it, but this." Lucas pulled back, eyes fierce. "You did. The Vipers, they came for us." Ethan appeared at their side, urging them toward the arroyos, his jacket torn but resolve unbroken. Harlan's deputy burst from a truck, rifle raised, but Sarah's shout halted him. "It's over! Feds have the files! Your face, the camps, all of it!" Sirens wailed closer now, blue lights piercing the dark like judgment's dawn. The deputy faltered, the weapon lowering as reality crashed in. No blaze of glory, just the slow unraveling of his master's web. The Vipers melted into the washes with their charges, engines waiting like faithful steeds. Ryan rode pillion behind Ethan, Lucas secure in the sidecar, the freed families distributed among the bikes, strangers bound by this night's grace. As they thundered away, the camp shrank in the mirrors, lights flickering as authorities swarmed. Harlan's empire cracked, not by violence, but by loyalty's quiet force, a boy's warning, evidence exposed, promises kept. Miles later, under a star-strewn sky, they reached a safe haven, an old ranch house lit warm against the night, hot meals steamed on tables, blankets draped over shoulders, the air rich with coffee and relief. Ethan watched Lucas and Ryan reunite fully, words tumbling in hushed tones, forgiveness weaving through the scars. Sarah clapped his back, her smile soft. "You started this, kid. Tires to freedom." Big Mike and Jacob shared nods, the chosen family intact, their code reaffirmed, Ethan's ghosts quieted. The foxhole vow fulfilled in this circle of light, redemption not in conquest, but in lives reclaimed, honor's legacy riding eternal. As dawn painted the ranch in gold, the horizon held no more shadows, only roads stretching toward new promises. Justice had come, moral and unyielding, binding the broken into unbreakable whole. Thank you for joining us on this journey of courage and unbreakable bonds. If these tales of redemption touch your heart, please subscribe and turn on notifications. We'd love to share more stories like this with you.